Hey, 7th graders, Mr. Eller again with another one of your flip lessons. Today we're going to be talking about the articles that are in the Constitution. There are 7 of them. You should have this foldable cut out and put into your interactive notebook on page 70. We're going to put some information on the middle, and then with each article, let me find number 1. We're going to put number 1 right on the inside flap like so. All right, here we go. It is very difficult to see anything with these glasses on, but we'll try. So this part is going to go in the middle of your foldable, this underlined part, okay? So the preamble or the introduction of the Constitution starts with this phrase, "We the people." And there was a lot of scariness to the Constitution to many of the citizens in America in 1787 because it was a big change. I mean, and think about all the changes that has happened in the last 10 or 15 years. We had a king, and we were colonies. We got rid of them. We created a Congress. We had our own government. Now we're creating a much bigger, much more powerful national government that is closer to what Britain had than what we had under the Articles of Confederation. But what the writers of the Constitution wanted to make clear is that no matter what happens, at the end of the day, the power of this Constitution, the power of the government created by the Constitution, comes from the people. So just like with the Articles of Confederation, just like with the king and parliament, if the people are not happy with their government, it is their job to start a new one, and they can do that for a variety of different ways, many of which is spelled out in the Constitution itself. All right, so Article 1 starts off with the legislative branch, and the legislative branch is made of the Congress, right? We talked about this. This is straight from the Great Compromise. The Senate, every state gets 2 senators. They're 6-term senators. That's going to be directly from the New Jersey plan. The House, that's going to be directly from the Virginia plan. Every state gets the amount of representatives based on its population. Big thing to know about the legislative branch. The legislative branch is the law-making branch. A lot of people say, well, the president made this law. That's not true. The president cannot make a law. Only the legislative branch. Now, if the president wants a law, they have to work with Congress to get them to introduce it, to pass it. Okay? But the president himself or herself cannot pass a law. Has to go through the legislative branch. The executive branch is the president and the vice president, and this is going to be the job of to enforce the law. One of the big things, the problems with the Articles of Confederation is Congress could make a law, but they had no way to keep the states in line to do it. That's pretty much what the president's job is. Within the president, there's going to be a president, there's going to be a vice president. Now, that's what's spelled out in the Constitution. There's also going to be a lot of things that the president is going to use that aren't really part of the Constitution, which are part of the unwritten Constitution. All right, this is like the presidential cabinet, and this was set up by George Washington. We'll talk a little bit more about this when we get to his presidency. All right, but his presidency did a lot to set up what other presidents were going to do for a long time, including, George Washington was only president for 8 years. There was nothing in the Constitution to stop him from going on for president for another term, but he did, and for the next 100 or so years, other presidents followed suit up until Franklin Roosevelt. Now, no president can serve more than 8 years. Article number 3 is the judicial branch. That's our Supreme Court. So a law is made by the Congress. A law is enforced by the executive branch. It's the Supreme Court's job to say whether or not that law is constitutional. That's all they can do, all right? But it is a big trick, all right? If they declare a law constitutional or declare a law unconstitutional, it's pretty much going to stay that way for 50 or 100 years. They do not reverse their decisions very quickly because, for the most part, most of them are serving for life. But we're going to talk a little bit about that later. All right, so the main part of the judicial branch is made up of the Supreme Court, but you can't just go and say, I'm going to sue you in the Supreme Court. It's got to go through a system. We have a system of courts across our country. We have a system of courts of appeals, and then we have a federal circuit. Once things go through that, then your case can get to the Supreme Court, and then they get to choose. They might not take your case. They might not think it's worth taking or worth questioning or worth answering, and they'll send it back to the lower case. Or they'll just say, nope, that's what this case is. All right? So judicial branch interprets the laws, tell us what those laws mean, tell us whether or not they're constitutional. Amendment number 4 is going to deal with statehood and American citizenship. It's going to outline all the rules for statehood. A lot of this is going to be borrowed from the Articles of Confederation, how many citizens we need, etc. And then the American citizenship part is going to talk about what it takes to be an American citizen, whether or not you're born in our country, how to take the citizenship test, and all of that stuff. But Article 4, statehood and citizenship. Article 5 is going to talk about amendments. Remember, we talked about the Bill of Rights as the first 10 amendments of the Constitution. As of 2018, we have another 27. We have 27, which means since 1787 through 2018, roughly 300, no, not quite 300 years, 220, something like that, 230. We've only made 17 more amendments. That's not a lot. This was deliberate, okay? The delegates of the Constitutional Convention wanted to give people the means to amend the Constitution, but they wanted to make sure if you're changing the Constitution, you're doing it for things that are well worthwhile. We're not changing the Constitution to declare a national color or National Ice Cream Day or something like that. We're doing this for big time issues. So what are some things that we've amended? We've given women the right to vote. We've given African Americans the right to vote. We've ended slavery. We've decreased the voting age. We've had prohibition. We've got rid of prohibition. We gave direct election to the senators. Lots of different amendments out there. But it all goes through the same process. First, it needs to be proposed. And to be proposed, it has to come through 2/3 of members of both the House and Senate. And it has to go through, or it can go through a convention called by the states. Either way, it has to get 2/3 votes. All right, which means it has to get somewhere in the neighborhood of 66%, which is a lot of votes to get on something. So lots of people have to approve it. That's for the proposal. Now for ratification. After it is proposed and said this is what we're going to do, it has to either two ways can happen. Either 3/5 or 3/4 or 75% of the state legislatures approve of it, or each state holds a ratifying convention like we did for the Constitution, and as long as 3/4 of those folks say yes, that'll become an amendment. Certain amendments have failed. The last one was an Equal Rights Amendment, which basically made sure that things were equal between men and women across economic and social and political issues. That was proposed and passed Congress, but did not pass through the states. Article 6, this was a big one. Remember, the states had a lot of financial issues. First part of Article 6 says any state debt is now going to be a debt of the whole United States, and they're going to take care of it. Upstate, some states like Virginia, Massachusetts, who had paid their debt, was a good thing for some states like I think New York and some others who had not paid their debt. This was a way to get people to kind of buy into the government as kind of a thank you for doing the Constitution. But then at the same time, it caused what's called the supremacy clause, which basically says if there's a national rule and a national law and a state law that say different things, the national law is going to be upheld. Article 7 says that this Constitution needed to be ratified for 9 states for it to become the Constitution. So really, once we had Virginia say yes in June 1788, the Constitution becomes a law of the land. However, it didn't make a lot of sense to have New York, North Carolina, and Rhode Island kind of hang in there. So once those were ratified, they became part of the United States and under the Constitution as well. All right, there's our flip lesson for tonight. I can't see a thing in these. Let me take those off. Oh my gosh, now I can see. That's our flip lesson for tonight. Any questions, hit me up on Schoology. Direct message if it's something for me. Just post something onto the board if you have questions that maybe